I thought my genetics were trash. And you can probably relate to me and say that, yeah, my genetics are bad as well. I have narrow clavicles, I have wide hips, I have weird muscle insertions, and I have a big gap in my chest. Bro, I'm cooked. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm just born to go ahead and be unattractive, be unesthetic, and not to be, jacked. And honestly, I felt the exact same way, especially when I first started training and everything. And these pictures were taken after just only a few weeks of starting to work out, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks. And as you can see, I'm not very muscular. I'm fairly skinny. I've been skinny all my life. And honestly, my starting point wasn't that good. I didn't have that much muscle mass on me. I had relatively, narrow clavicles. I didn't have wide shoulders or anything. But I still wanted to go ahead and give it a shot, give fitness a shot and to actually go ahead and start working out. So a few months in, I see that like I've built some muscle, I'm making some gains, and I was especially proud of, I'm starting to finally go ahead and see my abs, even though I've been skinny all of my life, but like my abs were never this defined, as well as with my arms. I honestly went ahead and also built some chest, like I've made some gains pretty much, but I carried on working out for longer, and I wasn't making the gains as quick as I wanted to. I didn't go ahead and start building a ton of muscle and everything. And I've been training so hard. I've been training multiple times per week, and it's like even when I'm with a shirt, like this was taken on my 14th birthday, so I started training when I was just 13 years old. This picture was taken on my 14th birthday, and honestly, looking at it, you couldn't tell that I was actually like working out and everything, and I was like training for like a few months now and everything, and I'm taking training seriously. I'm training multiple times per week. You couldn't go ahead and tell this, right? I don't even look like I lift, bro. Like honestly, like I'm with a shirt and I just look skinny. I look the exact same even before I went ahead and started training. So like, what's the point? I'm wearing clothes and you can't even tell that I lift, So, I'm working out and it's like, I'm not making gains as quick as I want to. I'm looking at people online and they say that like, oh, I've been training for a year and 2 years and everything, and they're like twice or like 3 times as big as me. I was thinking like, man, maybe like my genetics aren't that good. Maybe just like fitness altogether isn't for me. Maybe I'm built for like something else, right? So I wanted to do a lot of things in my life, but I would go ahead and tell myself like, oh, this thing isn't for me. Like maybe I'm not built for this. Maybe I'm not so good at this. I don't have any talent. I don't have any good, incredible genetics. But I went ahead and asked myself, when I saw people who made incredible fitness transformations, an incredible before and after transformation, and I saw their progress, I honestly asked myself, why can't it be me? Why can't I be one of these people who went ahead and were super skinny, or they were super like out of shape, or like, they didn't have a ton of muscle or anything. They had like horrible genetics. But why can't it be me? Why can't I go ahead and make progress? And honestly, I got kind of annoyed at myself and I said, you know what? Fitness is not going to be one of those things again, which I wanted to go ahead and do, but I just said, maybe this isn't for me. I wanted to go ahead and give it a shot and actually try and stay consistent in it, So I got tired of staying inconsistent. I wanted to go ahead and start taking fitness seriously and start taking this stuff seriously, because I knew that honestly, if I put in enough time, if I put enough effort, I'm going to go ahead and see results, or at least I'm going to go ahead and make progress. So that is exactly what I went ahead and did. I got back up and I pushed forward. I made a ton of breaks. I honestly plateaued for a very long time, just like months and months. I'm like training in the gym, I'm doing push-ups, I'm doing calisthenics, anything. It's like I'm trying to progressively overload. But then the next workout, it's like I got weaker. I'm doing less reps, I'm doing less weight. And I had all types of days, right? Where I was unmotivated. I was like honestly thinking like, like maybe like this isn't for me. I'm tired, like I'm not making that many gains. I'm just like sore, but it's like I'm not gaining any strength or muscle. But you know what? I carried on pushing forward. Despite whatever setbacks I had, even if I was lazy, I was tired, even if I had like not that good of genetics, I still went ahead and started training and I stayed consistent with it, right? So these were taken just like 8, 9 months ago now, and I'm already like making progress, right? Even though I would have thought like, like I even found a video of myself, when I was young and I was, in the first few weeks of training, I was just doing push-ups in my room and I just like was starting to record myself. I wasn't planning on recording it and like posting it on YouTube, but just like recording for myself, right? And even then, I doubted myself. I said, like maybe I'm not going to go ahead and carry on being consistent in fitness, like maybe I'm going to go ahead and quit this fitness stuff.
I don't know, I'm just like a failure at everything I did. I don't know. Oh, I think I'll like quit this fitness stuff anyway.
But I still carried on pushing. And this is me. This is the most recent sort of physique pictures which I took. And I don't care what you say, but to myself, looking back where I first like started out and everything, I made progress. I built muscle, even if it wasn't as incredible as other people. Maybe my genetics were holding me back. I had like other excuses, I made a ton of mistakes along the way, but this is the current physique which I've built. And honestly, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself. I don't care what somebody might say, and they say like, oh, like I'm bigger than you or whatever. This is why you shouldn't go ahead and just like blame your excuses. You shouldn't blame your genetics. You shouldn't say like, oh, I don't have enough time and stuff like this. I don't have time to go ahead and work out, because all of that is an excuse. But honestly, the biggest difference between you and the person that you want to go ahead and become, you want to become the guy with the incredible physique who's jacked, who's attractive, all of that stuff, is that they went ahead and still carried on showing up. Most people quit. Most people quit the gym. Okay, they quit the gym too soon. Okay, so okay, how do you actually go ahead and overcome bad genetics? Okay, you might say, yeah, but bro, like your genetics are actually good. Your genetics are good, like your starting pictures, they're pretty good, bro. They're pretty good, like my genetics are worse. So, how do you actually overcome bad genetics? So, the first thing is that you have to actually stop having this victim mentality and say that like, oh my genetics, like my genetics are bad. I have white hips, I look feminine. Oh, I'm not going to be aesthetic. I'm not going to be attractive. You have to actually stop having this literal victim mentality and start blaming your genetics. And honestly, I look up to a bodybuilder called Tom Platz, right? And if you go ahead and look at his before pictures, you wouldn't go ahead and say like, okay, this guy's going to be a future Mr. Olympia, right? And even in one of his seminars, he said that like when he was first starting out and everything, and he saw that, like his genetics probably weren't 10 out of 10, he said, I will not be a victim to my genetics. And this is honestly a picture of his before and after. And Tom Platz, when you think of Tom Platz, you think, okay, big legs, big legs, biggest legs in bodybuilding, all that kind of stuff. But when he was like 18, 19 years old, he was already like training for multiple years, like 6, 7, 8 years, maybe even more. And, he had a pretty good upper body, but his legs were lacking. And even people then were saying like, oh yeah, bro, like your legs are small. But guess what? Guess what? This guy trained legs so hard. He trained with so much intensity, so much volume. He gave it so much passion, despite whatever kind of genetics he had, despite whatever genetics he was given. He went ahead and honestly gave it his all. And look at his physique. This is like prime Tom Platz and everything. Of course, he didn't go ahead and win the Mr. Olympia, unfortunately, but I'm telling you, like, he is still proud of the effort that he went ahead and put in despite whatever genetics he was given. So, why do you care about your genetics? And honestly, if you go ahead and say, yeah, bro, I'm not going to work out, I'm not going to train that hard because, like, my genetics are bad anyway, what does that give you? In the future, let's say that you're older and everything, and you go ahead and look back in your past, you're not going to go ahead and think, you know what, I'm proud that I looked at my genetics and I said, okay, it's not even worth it for me to even try. It's not even worth it for me to go ahead and honestly like work out or train hard and try and, make a change because, my genetics are just going to be my genetics. If I was born skinny, if I was born overweight, maybe I'm supposed to be this way. Like how some people who are overweight, they say that, I have thick bones, my bones are big, I'm just born to go ahead and be big, like I'm supposed to like be overweight, my metabolism, my genetics, all that kind of stuff, right? It's absolutely untrue, okay? And everyone knows that it's crap, right? So honestly, you have to go ahead and accept the genetics that you've been given. And once you go ahead and actually accept your genetics that you've been given, you will actually go ahead and start finally making progress, okay? It doesn't matter what kind of genetics you've been given. It's honestly about what you go ahead and do with the genetics that you've been given, okay? And honestly, if you are actually with bad genetics, you actually have a bigger chance of actually making an incredible transformation, right? Because you might see physiques online and you might think, okay, this guy has an incredible physique, right? But then you go ahead and look at his before pictures and you say, okay, like this guy already had pretty good genetics. His starting point was my physique when I've been training for like months and years and everything. So honestly, the worser the start, the bigger the sort of glow up, the bigger sort of like the transformation that you can actually go ahead and make if you actually go ahead and start training seriously. So honestly, if you have bad genetics, then you have no excuse to go ahead and train bad. You have to actually train hard. You actually have to eat good and recover good. Like there is no secret, honestly. It doesn't matter if you have good genetics, if you have bad genetics and everything. Especially if you have bad genetics, you have less of an excuse to go ahead and not train hard and eat good and recover good. And all of that kind of stuff. You still need to go ahead and get 1 pound of protein, or at least close to 1 pound of protein per pound of body weight. You have to actually still progressively overload and, not overtrain and get 8 hours of sleep and all that kind of stuff, right? So if you want to go ahead and speed up the process and to actually start, like making gains in the gym and to start being consistent, then check out the first link in the description, being my Aesthetic Academy, my new school community, which I made, which will be talking about training and diet and recovery. And if you're interested in that kind of stuff and you're new to the gym and you want a community with people who share the same goals as you, honestly, then you should check out the Skool Community in the description, and I know you'll like it. Okay, and the last point is that if you want to actually go ahead and start making progress, you need to make this mindset shift, okay? You need to stop caring about having this perfect workout, because there will be days where you kind of just like wake up and you go through your day and you're thinking like, bro, like I'm actually honestly kind of tired. I'm not in the mood to go ahead and work out. You actually have to stop waiting for the perfect moment, okay? You have to stop waiting for the perfect workout because it's never gonna go ahead and happen. And you need to start developing the mindset that doing something is better than nothing, okay? If you don't want to go ahead and go to the gym, you're feeling unmotivated, you're feeling tired, you're feeling sore, you actually have to develop this mindset that just by showing up, doing something is always going to be better than just like doing nothing, okay? If you're supposed to go to the gym and you're just tired, you're unmotivated, just showing up is always going to be better. And honestly, once you go ahead and show up, you're going to start feeling better about yourself. You're going to think, okay, I'm proud of myself for even just showing up in the first place. And honestly, a little fun fact, 50% of people, they quit the gym after 6 months of like signing up and everything. Maybe not quit the gym, but people substantially go ahead and start going to the gym less and less and less, because people have this high expectations that, by going to the gym, if, like start eating better, if I start eating clean foods and I start training hard in a month, I'm gonna go ahead and make this like drastic change and everything. Honestly, bro, if you think like my physique is impressive, just know that I've been training for nearly 4 years, okay? And I'm saying that like, honestly, bro, you can get my physique in just a year and a half or 2 years, but I made a ton of mistakes along the way, and that is why I go ahead and make videos on this channel for you to go ahead and to be prevented from making the same mistakes which I made in my fitness journey, okay? So honestly, bro, like this stuff takes a long time. You shouldn't be upset at yourself for thinking like, oh, I skipped the gym today or I skipped the gym yesterday. Like I lost my streak or whatever. I didn't go ahead and train every single day. I went ahead and trained 6 times or 5 times. I missed some days in the gym when I was supposed to go ahead and train. You shouldn't go ahead and like blame yourself. You shouldn't be thinking like, oh, like I should have trained, but I didn't. What you need to be thinking is that, okay, consistency, really what it is time and volume, okay? Because honestly, my physique was built after hundreds of weightlifting sessions in the gym. It was built off of hundreds of calisthenics workouts and all that kind of stuff, right? So honestly, building muscle, getting the dream physique that you want to go ahead and have, it takes time, and you need to be willing to go ahead and be patient and to honestly put in the work and the effort and to keep showing up even if you're not making gains quick enough and all that kind of stuff. Because when you start looking back, same way how I look back in my old physique pictures, I'm grateful that I started working out in the first place. And honestly, I know that you can do it, okay? I know if you go ahead and put enough effort, put enough time, with time, you'll also learn the mistakes that you're making and prevent those mistakes, and you'll start making gains even quicker. But the most important thing is that you honestly have passion for the gym. Even on the days when you don't want to go to the gym, you just go ahead and smile through your workout and just show up in the first place, okay? That is the most important thing. So yeah, this is why you shouldn't go ahead and blame your genetics. And despite whatever kind of setbacks you have, just know that by staying consistent, just by showing up to the gym and just like putting in effort, you'll go ahead and make progress despite whatever kind of setbacks, whatever genetics you have, all that kind of stuff. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and check out the Skool Community in the description, a new Skool Community which I made, which is called the Aesthetic Academy. And if you resonate with the things which I say in my video, I know you'll like the Skool Community. So check out the Skool Community in the description, and thank you for watching this video.